The Labor government has just passed down the federal budget on Tuesday night, which has sent a shockwave throughout the country. The promise of not touching negative gearing has been broken by Albo and his party, with smug justifications as to why it needed to happen. So much so that the property, construction, and financial industries are stunned at how naive these leaders truly are. And today, I'm going to break down these changes and ultimately how the Labor government is going to continue wrecking the Australian property market after these changes. I'm Corey Jones. I've helped hundreds of everyday Aussies generate over $100 million in equity in the last 5 years alone. And yes, if you can't tell today, I'm pretty pissed. Today, I'm going to break down exactly why this budget will continue destroying our beautiful country, and why this budget is extremely short-sighted, and why we need to make a change to the way that we vote moving forward. Now, before I'd start, I'd like to highlight the absolute irony of this situation right now. See, all of the current conversations are based on the fact that these wealthy people are hoarding all of this money. For example, like the baby boomers, they're hoarding all of this wealth, and now we need to tax them into oblivion due to inequality. This is absolutely absurd, and here's why. Negative gearing is used by the poor and the middle class to get ahead. See, most people believe that negative gearing is a strategy, and it's not. It's an outcome. Negative gearing is the outcome of using the minimum deposit to buy a property and then having to rely on the month-to-month tax refunds or the year-to-year tax refunds to hold on to that asset, otherwise they can't afford it. In other words, they need the tax benefits to help them, otherwise they simply cannot do it. To be clear, people like me, wealthy investors, I don't use properties and buy them in my personal name. I only use companies and trusts. My portfolio is large enough that I don't need to rely on negative gearing anymore. In other words, negative gearing is the actual way that the poor and middle class break into the wealthy class. So in effect, this is actually going to make it harder for the average person who's struggling to become wealthy. To sit there and say that this is needed to help with inequality, I've got two words: fuck you. It is bullshit. All this is doing is going to create a larger wedge between the haves and the have-nots, and all this policy is going to do is exacerbate this. This is not going to fix it like they claim. Now, in terms of negative gearing, here are the changes. So negative gearing is limited to new builds for properties. After budget night on May 12th, investors buying new builds, nothing changes. So you will still get the tax advantages and keep the full negative gearing benefits. Now, for established properties, post-budget night, you will not be able to claim negative gearing against your personal income. You will be able to carry the losses forward and claim it against the sale price at the end. So what that means for established properties is you won't have the benefits of being able to claim the tax and receive the tax on a week-to-week or a year-to-year basis to help hold the cost of the property. All laws have been grandfathered, which means if you own the property prior to 12th of May, you can still continue with the previous rules. Anything as of 12th May onwards, it will come into effect as of the 1st of July of 2027, so next year. By doing this and making these changes, they have made established property investments practically infeasible. So that means that they're practically no longer worth it for the average person. Keep in mind, guys, this is a huge problem, and here's why. Most investors don't want to build homes. Most investors want to buy established. So on the simple fact that you're already forcing a choice here will push tens of thousands of people away from investing in property altogether. Now, today in 2026, we have a housing shortage. So this is going to disincentivize property investment in general, because there are a huge chunk of people out there who will never build a property because of the fears of construction, high prices, time blowouts, and all the normal doom and gloom that we see on the media every single day. Now, this policy would make more sense if we were in a balanced market, but we're not. We are in a critical shortfall supply of housing. We've got unprecedented demand due to Labor's pro-immigration policy. As you can already see from most of the comments in most of the social media posts, most people are in one of two camps. The first camp, they already own multiple properties and won't be impacted by these changes thanks to the grandfathering laws. Or they're not in the property market yet, and now we'll be looking at other asset classes, for example, crypto, shares, everything else other than property, because in their mind, these policies make property even worse. Mark my words, guys, there are two outcomes of this. A, higher prices, and B, higher rents. For those who've been listening to this show for a few years, just have a quick think about my track record when it comes to making these predictions. Think about what happened during the COVID years. Think about what happened when the building timeframes increased. Think about what I was saying when interest rates were rising. All of those things came to play out in this exact same way, and my prediction is it'll do the exact same thing again. The second major change when it comes to the property market is due to capital gains tax. Now, the current 50% discount of holding the asset for more than 12 months will be replaced with an inflation-based discount and a minimum of 30% CGT on all gains arising post the 1st of July 2027. Again, all this is going to do is incentivize people to never sell their property. For example, in my own situation, I've now got tens of thousands of dollars of reasons why I should hold on and never sell. Instead of doing a portfolio reduction strategy at the end towards retirement, I'll now hoard these and continue to pass them on to my kids and teach them the same thing. Remember, guys, these laws were here for a reason, and it's to incentivize a certain type of behavior. Our society needs more houses. We need more stock in that market in order for the market to move. This CGT will not impact people like me when I hold assets in companies and trusts, but it will the average everyday mum and dad. So once again, you are hurting the very people that you're claiming that you're trying to help. There's also been a change to discretionary trusts. And again, people like me used to be able to distribute my income to my family, my kids, wife, in order to lower our household income and tax on paper. Now, the new change means that there is going to be a 30% minimum tax from July 1st of 2028. So there's a 3-year rollover relief from July of 2027. Now, I've already had this conversation with my accountant. We've already got a plan in place so that this change will not impact me in any way, shape, or form. Now, to sit here and say that this policy is going to impact the rich and help the poor is absolutely absurd. Wealthy people who spend a lot more money on their accountant than I do, I will bet you every dollar that they've already got a plan to. And to mention some of the other interesting funding by the Labor government that they've swept into this budget, for example, $600 million for anti-Semitism education. So keep in mind, the Australian government has imported millions of people over the last several years, but now we need to allocate $600 million to help with social cohesion, apparently. There's another $654 million to expand digital ID, which most people don't want. Only the government does. Most people can see through this. This is the incoming global surveillance state that the bodies like the World Economic Forum have been talking about for decades. And there's now another $600 or over $500 million in this budget to now start pushing digital ID even harder. And the final mention is a $42.5 million for HIV-infected migrants who can't access Medicare. So to be clear, we are currently importing more people than we can handle, some of which have HIV infections. And now it's up to us as the taxpayers who can't even afford our own stuff, and we've now got to pay for the infected migrants that our government is choosing to bring into this country. Now let's get clear about something here, guys. Most Australians have a few problems. House prices and rents are completely out of control. Inflation is high. The cost of living is crazy. Fuel prices are at record highs. We're in more debt than we've ever been in, and all of this is 100% our government's fault. Now, what do you think is going to happen when all the rich start leaving the country because they're getting taxed too much? I've got an idea. The same thing happens to every society when the wealthy leave. Tax revenue goes through the floor, the government has to expand that tax policy to everybody, and because no one can afford to pay it, we have to go full communist and relocate every asset under the government. This is the current pathway that we are on as a nation under the Labor government, and I could not be more disgusted. So guys, that is my 2 cents of the current federal budget for 2026. I think this budget is absolutely absurd. I think the powers that be are completely negligent, and it's up to us as Australians to vote correctly next time we're in the polling booth. I hope you guys have got value from this, and if you'd like what you've heard today, guys, we'd love if you could share this with your friends.